Hello and welcome to the Health Oddity Podcast, episode 169. We're kind of, it's going to be a little while. We're about 30 episodes off of 200, but we're moving towards 200, and we are joined today by another fantastic guest who is it's a little bit different than some of our recent guests, and probably most of our previous guests, which is why I was really keen to get him on. I will introduce you to our guest in a minute, but first of all, I'll just check in with Mr. Peter Lant. He's down in Bath. How are you doing, Pete?
I'm doing very well, considering I've just been out walking the dog in Storm Kieran, which is lovely.
Is that what it's called? Storm Kieran, is it?
I think that's the one we've got at the minute. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not as bad as us. Sean's parents live on Guernsey, and they've been absolutely battered. There's I think Jersey's been hit really bad as well, and there's the hospital's lost its roof or something, and they were talking about their friends counting the roof tiles that are coming on the roof off the roof overnight and all that sort of stuff. So they've been absolutely hammered. So getting a little bit wet out walking the dog is kind of a I'll take that as a win.
But now you're in the dry. You're in the dry and the warm, and we're here for a pleasant afternoon. I'm not sure if I'm going to go to Paul. I'm going to try Paul. Paul is having he's always got internet issues, isn't he? But it might be weather related. We'll see. Paul, are you there? No, we'll leave Paul today.
I've muted him.
Yeah, no, we'll leave Paul today. He is there. I think he can probably hear what we're saying, but he is not. What's it? Non-communicado, or John Wick incommunicado, whatever it is. Right. We have today joining us Mr. Will Polston. I'm holding up a book. If you are looking online, I think. Pete is holding up a book as well. North Star Thinking, Master Your Mindset.
It's got this fella on the back here who looks exactly like this fella here. It's mad.
It's amazing what Photoshop can do, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's great. So North Star Thinking, Master Your Mindset and Live a Life You Love. I'm just going to read a brief bio from Will, and then we're going to kind of just get in and have a chat. So Will Polston is a best-selling author, entrepreneur, award-winning business strategist and performance coach who leverages his personal journey from a successful yet unfulfilled broker. We have spoke about this a lot, haven't we, Pete, before, successful kind of corporate life, but somehow unfulfilled. Now empowering ambitious individuals to master their mindset and live a life they love. With a unique approach that combines multiple disciplines, he offers insight into behavior and delivers life-altering strategies. Now, I've just read North Star Thinking. I finished maybe a couple of weeks ago, and I know Pete has just read it himself. And I have to say, I've been involved and been around personal development for 20 years, and I thought it was a great book. It brought together so much, so many themes, so many things that I've kind of read over the years, but it brought it together in such a way that was relatable, and I think what was great, really applicable. And it's kind of caused me to sit down and start making some notes and start doing some writing again, and really re-evaluating some things around my life and career and business and that sort of thing. So first of all, Will, welcome to the Health Odyssey podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and grateful to be here.
Excellent. So I suppose to begin with, Will, I kind of have been aware of you for a lot of years, and then obviously with the book recently coming out, I've recently just read the book. Maybe for our listeners, do you want to maybe just tell us a little bit about your background? Because I know you've not always been a kind of a coach and an author, and I know you've play ice hockey and that sort of thing, and you've had a kind of athletic background as well, but you maybe just want to kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, and we can dive in and ask questions as we go, if that's okay.
Absolutely. So I was born on the 18th of May 19 no, I'm joking. Look, in terms of the main focus of what I do, and the question I get asked all the time is, so why are you a coach? Why do you do what you do? And this for me kind of goes back, and I had a very loving childhood. I've got an amazing mum and dad, two sisters, and a brother. And one of the things that I remember growing up was how much my dad hated his job. So he would leave home at 5 o'clock in the morning, get home at 7, 8 o'clock at night, and he'd bring the stress and the frustration of work home with him, to the point where, I don't know if you guys can relate to this or anybody listening can relate to this, but he had so much tension. I could physically feel it. There was so much tension. Anyway, one day I come home from school and my dad had quit his job to set up a business with one of my uncles. Now, I've got two very wealthy uncles. One's a billionaire. The other one's a multi-millionaire. And dad always used to say they just got lucky. That was his thing. They got lucky. They got lucky. Anyway, he went to set up a business with one of my uncles, but that never happened. And my dad hated this job that he worked in London, and he'd left the job. And then he was in a real rock and a hard place because the business wasn't going to go ahead. He didn't want to go back to the job that he hated. And knowing what I know now, looking back on it, he was experiencing feelings of depression. So he was sleeping in a separate room to my mum, curtains shut all day, didn't leave the house, all that stereotypical stuff. But me at 11 years old, I just connected the dots and it was very obvious for me. There was Uncle Mark, he's a billionaire, he was really happy. There was Uncle Steve, he was a multimillionaire, he was really happy. There was my dad when he worked in London. All right, he was stressed and frustrated, but he had money and he was happier than he is now. He's not leaving the house and all that stereotypical stuff. So for me, it was obvious at 11 years old, money equaled happiness. So I went off on this tangent to make as much money as I could as early as I could. I was the kid in school buying and selling sweets and ducking and diving and doing whatever it is that I could. And then that carried on for many years. And then I stumbled across personal development when I was about 18 years old. And the more personal development that I did, the more money I made. I was like, bloody hell, this is brilliant. It was like a license to print money, making more and more and more by doing more and more personal development. And then one day I went to an event, a big personal development event with Tony Robbins, who some listeners may know of, UPW. And I had what I call my lightning moment, and bam, it just hit me. Cried my eyes out for about 15 minutes. And in that moment, I realized my real driver was nothing to do with money. It had never really been about money. What it was really about was my dad, and how my dad hadn't achieved certain things he was capable of, and the impact that had on him and my mum and me and my family and a whole host of other people. And I vowed in that moment, I don't want anyone else to go through the suffering that he went through and we went through as a result of them not achieving their full potential. So from that moment on, I've just been obsessed with anything to do with human awareness, human potential, human behavior, to enable people to get more out of life, essentially.
Wow, I mean that's an amazing intro. I don't think we've had someone come on the podcast before and just kind of bang, that kind of really sets the stall out of who you are and where this came from. And so this job you were doing then, as I said in the bio just briefly, you were kind of like a broker or something, and it was by many measures of success. It was a successful career. You were doing very well for yourself, but you were unfulfilled with what you were doing there. And we've spoke about this a lot with other coaches that we've had on. And usually it's actually around the people that we coach. I mean, Pete has a kind of a background in the corporate world, and so does Paul as well. But we find that a lot of people that listen to the podcast and that we coach, who are maybe in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, they've spent a whole life building this, like you say, like a kind of a dependable, steady, kind of a good income job that does take them away from their family. And they get to a certain age, maybe it's 40s, 50s, or coming to retirement, and they realize that they've not actually done what they like, or they've not actually done what they would potentially have liked to do with their life. And a lot of the time for the people we speak to on here, maybe they've neglected their health and they've neglected other things in their life for that material gain and that kind of financial security. So what was it then that, I mean, what happened after you kind of had this epiphany and you decided that, you wanted to make this change?
So I literally drove home, and I drove to my parents' house, and I said to my parents, my family, I sat them all down in the living room and I said, guys, I'm going to become the world's best life coach. That's what I said to them. And that's not my goal now. It's what I thought was my goal then. And I said, this is what I'm going to do. And I've got this plan. I had this energy and this enthusiasm. And I think it was a bit like a bull in a china shop, that everybody's like, right, wow, where's this come from? You went to this event on Thursday morning as a normal guy, and you've come back Sunday and like this is what's happening. And then the next day, I remember going to the bank and setting up a limited. No, that night. So the Sunday night, I told them that night I registered a company. And then the next day, I went and set up a bank account. And it was like all systems go. And then I registered the bank account and just stopped. And I said, right, so now that's all done. I can properly do it when I'm successful, right? So that's kind of what I said to myself. That I'll do it when I'm successful. That's when I really feel I can be of value to other people. Anyway, long story short, I did leave the city, and I set up a renewable energy business in Chelmsford, and that's actually when I first kind of really come across yourself, James, because I was doing personal training in Unique Results with a very good friend of mine, and we're doing that, and we were growing this business and growing. I mean, within 18 months, we had 85 staff, growing. And then government just literally changed legislation overnight, pretty much killed that business. And I was like, oh, I'm doing it again. I'm just chasing the money. And then how that ended up then pivoting and evolving. And it's quite interesting being on this call with you today for reasons I'll explain in just a second, because I don't know whether you know this, but I think you do. So I decided, me and my girlfriend at the time, to go and we were going to go on holiday, and we decided on our location, and the location was Mexico, and we were going to go to Cancun, and we were going to go in this place. And my girlfriend at the time was a dental nurse, and she said, well, you need to go and get your teeth cleaned by the hygienist before you go. I said, all right, cool. So I went to the hygienist, and the hygienist clipped my gum, right, to the point where it got infected just days before we were going on holiday. And she said, I'm really sorry, well, you've got to take these antibiotics. You can't drink alcohol on. At the time I used to drink, I don't drink now. And I was like, no, I can't believe it. Anyway, we're on holiday, and we went to this nightclub experience, whatever you want to call it, called Coca Bongos, which is quite renowned. You know, it's like a big show, and they've got midgets swinging from the ceiling and all this stuff. She was throwing back tequila like it was going out of fashion. I carried her home at 4 o'clock in the morning over my shoulder, and the next morning she's got her head down the toilet throwing up. And I said, well, she said, I'm not going out into the sun. I said, well, I am. You know, my holiday, I've not been drinking all holiday. I'm going out. And I read a book by a woman called Rhonda Byrne. A lot of people may know Rhonda Byrne because she authored a book that's quite well known called The Secret. But it wasn't The Secret I was reading. It was a book called The Hero. And in The Hero, it spoke about a guy called Mastin Kipp, who had a website called The Daily Love, and how he used to post motivational quotes on Twitter every day. And one day he got retweeted by Kim Kardashian, and he went from 1,000 followers to 10,000 followers overnight. And I just started crying again. I call it my second lightning moment, because in that moment I thought, Will, you idiot. All this time you keep saying, I'll do it when I'm successful. You know, when this happens, then I'll do that. I call it when then syndrome. And I just decided then and there, all I need to do is start posting a quote on social media. So I come home from holiday and I started posting an inspirational quote on social media each day. A week later, I thought, Will, again, you idiot. Some people don't go on social media in the morning. You should post one in the afternoon as well. So I started doing that. A week after that, I set up my first website. A week after that, I did my first blog. 3 months later, I had a 10,000 strong social media following. And this is where the bit that whether you know this or not, I'm not too sure. In month 4, I decided I'm going to run my own events, local events. I'm going to put them on for free. I'm going to get 50 people to come to every event. I'm going to share loads of value with them. Hopefully they'll find something beneficial and they want to sign up to do some more stuff with me, whatever that will be. First event, 36 people turned up, not bad, although 33 of them were friends and family. So, I mean, maybe not quite so good.
I think I actually remember having, I totally forgot, but I think I remember having leaflets of these events in the gym on the reception kind of thing. And you maybe brought them in and said, can I leave these like flyers here or something? And I can see it now, actually.
I completely forgot I had those flyers, but yeah, I absolutely did. Yeah, no, I did. Yeah. So it seems like nobody picked them up from the gym. So first week was 36, then it was 16, then it was 12, then it was 13. But I only sold two of these tickets, this event I wanted to run. And I just thought, wow, I can't believe this. And then I thought, well, there's got to be another angle here. And the thing that I remember thinking, you know, behind me, there's a load of books. I can see behind you, there's a load of books. I thought, nobody reads just one author. So why should they just have one coach? So I created this idea of basically what I called I called it at the time the elite network, but it was because the etymology of the word elite means to elect. So it was all about to elect to live life at level 10, the elite network, but people thought it was like this elitist group. But it wasn't that. But the reason I bring that up was because the person that I did that with was a good friend of yours, Mark Davis, because at the time I didn't know. I was like, how am I going to get all these other speakers, all these other coaches? I just had this idea, and I knew that he ran something called TEDx Chelmsford at the time. So I thought, well, he must have speakers. So the reason I share that part of the story, which I never normally even go into, is because I'm a huge fan of collaboration, and I literally have a frame on my desk that says there's no such thing as lack of resources, only a lack of resourcefulness. And at the time I didn't have the speakers, I didn't know, but just because I didn't know it didn't mean somebody else wouldn't know. And that's a mutual friend of ours. And it was that collaboration with Mark that helped start getting things going. And eventually we're running these events in 8 cities around the UK every month. And yeah, then it evolved on from there.
I mean, it's amazing because one of the things that that Pete said when I first sent you the book, Pete, didn't you? You opened it up and you looked through, because in the front of the book, you've got all of these kind of recommendations and positive quotes and from people that are really well known and really kind of like well-known authors, well-known kind of business people. And Pete, you sort of said, God, he knows a lot of people, doesn't he?
I was looking through it and I saw like Michael Heppel in there and people like that. You know, Brandon Block as well. I remember him from back in the day.
Mark Victor Hansen. You know, we've obviously got Daniel Priestley, loads of these people in there. James Sinclair, Nigel Botterill, all these. And then, but it's so interesting that so you obviously that having those contacts and knowing all those people has been. It's like, I suppose, a lot of people, they'll see something like that and think, well, I don't know anyone, I can't do this, you know. And it's like you said, well, when I'm successful, then I'll do this. But it's really, really interesting to know that you start, you know, it's good to hear the kind of the genesis of it and the start of it. And the fact that when you started, you didn't have all these contacts, you didn't know all these people. And I know that you've gone on now to, you know, to host big, you know, personal development, multi-speaker events. You know, you host this, you know, a monthly dinner, kind of networking dinner with loads of people there. You know, you've got probably in your phone all these global kind of coaches and things and authors that you can just pick up and speak to anytime. So what did you, because early on you sort of said, when you first sat your family down, you said, I'm going to be the best life coach in the world. And then you said that was my goal, but it's not my goal now. And this kind of ties in, I suppose, to the book North Star Thinking. You know, it's kind of what has that evolved into now, if that's not still the goal?
So just to loop back, because it's relevant. What one of my coaches is and sort of I think as a mentor, I suppose, as well, is a guy called Dan Sullivan. And Dan Sullivan's written an incredible book, but it's not just a book, it's a philosophy of life that I think everybody should be adapting. There's certain things that I hear every now and then, and I just think, oh God, I wish I'd said that, you know. and what I'm about to say is one of his things, which is who, not how. And the quality of your life depends on the quality of the questions you ask yourself. And so many people ask the wrong question. They ask, how do I do X, Y, and Z? Rather than rejigging the words to who do I need to help me do this? And it's the same with fitness and exercise. You know, you can go and learn everything about training and calories and this and that and all those things, or you just get one person that's got all of that knowledge, and then they're your shortcut. And that for me was the situation. I'm a huge advocate for collaboration. I love collaboration. I don't believe in competition. I believe that there's always collaboration. It's part of a more of an abundance mindset thinking, I guess. But I think that's so key. So having that element of who do I need? Who's going to be the person that's going to get me the furthest, the fastest? And in my experience, people that really excel not because they necessarily do more, but because they do less. But they do more of the right stuff that's right for them, whatever that might be. And I think that's so true. You know, you can apply it to any walk of life, health, fitness, whatever. It's about doing more of the right stuff than just doing stuff for the sake of it. So yeah, sorry, I wanted to touch on that in relation to the various different kind of people that you mentioned, but I can't actually remember the question that you
Oh
asked.
no, it was
That's all right.
it was no, because you had the you said initially it was I want to be the world's
Yeah,
best life
yeah,
coach,
yeah, yeah,
and I
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
said, what's that kind of morphed into now, or how's that evolved?
So that actually changed really quickly. So when I sort of started embarking in this world, as you do, you start consuming different types of content, and I come across a guy called Harry Singer, and this is where I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer that life is always happening for you, not to you. Right now, what actually happened, and I've never said this actually to anybody ever, so it's really interesting we talk about it. When I had the renewable energy business and that all went kaput, me and my business partner at the time were sort of navigating this transitional period, and we actually moved into a temporary office, which was basically a back room out of one of the and arguably a competitor of ours at the time, and we started sort of working on a few other things, and what I kind of got involved with the business that he really wanted to be involved with, and he was kind of going to be involved with me on the coaching side of things, and we were going to cut things up, and we hired an apprentice on one of these schemes where like the government pay you to basically have them. It was crazy, and it was a lady called Haley. And Haley at the time, bless her, she was like 16 years old. She still had her braces in, you know, but she was a lovely girl, Irish girl. And she said, oh, I once had this coach work with me when I was at school. I was like 13 years old, and he was incredible. He was amazing. A guy called Harry Singer. Anyway, I started looking up Harry Singer, and I ended up reaching out to him. And Harry Singer, for people that have heard of Tony Robbins, he will speak quite often at UPW. And so he's sort of, you knew he was in good company when he's sort of speaking on Tony Robbins' stage. And I reached out to him and I said, look, I'd be really interested to have a call with you, and we had a discovery call, and he said, and I said, oh, this is my goal, and I'm gonna be the world's best life coach. And he just stopped me dead and said, that's not your goal, that's not your purpose. Your purpose is not to be the world's best life coach. And I was like, oh man, that's a real blow. I had all this energy and this enthusiasm to do this thing that I thought this was it, I found it. He said, that's not your purpose. And I said, well, what is? And he said, it's not about you. Or he didn't actually say that. He said something to that effect. He said, you're making it about you, make it about other people. And he was right, because it was never really about me. It wasn't, I wanted to have this trophy on my wall saying, congratulations, Will Polston, you are now voted the world's best life coach. It wasn't about that, but it was the way that I was explaining it that was wrong. And this is, I think, so key in life, in that sometimes people don't say what they mean, you know, and that can be in a positive way and in a negative way. And the message is always determined by the receiver. The message is always determined by the receiver. And I completely get it. He was 100% right, because what I was saying was all about me, but it wasn't about me. That's not what I meant, but that was how it was being portrayed. So I just decided what it was really about was empowering other people to live a life that they love. And that's essentially, there's been evolutions of that, but that really now is what it's about for me. So everything that I do, is my North Star is about getting people to transform excuses into results and live a life they love, so it benefits them, their family, their friends, their community, society, humanity, and the universe. And whatever it is that I'm doing, I do my best, and I'm not perfect, but I do my best to align that with that mission of what I'm working on.
So that's yeah. Sorry, Pete, go on.
I was going to say, I've got loads of things. I've got loads of things written down. It's interesting because I used to work in the energy industry. Actually, I was a trader in the energy industry, and my thing was to make as much money as possible, because my parents worked in a factory, and you know, we weren't skint when we were younger, but we didn't have loads of money as well. I didn't have billionaires' uncles and all that. My uncle was a roofer. The other one worked on tarmac in the roads. But so that resonates. And but what you've just said there was great. That people don't say what they mean. And that made me immediately think people don't know what they mean. That's part of the problem, because people don't think about this stuff. They just get up. 95% of I mean, that's a statistic I've heard. I might be, whether it's true or not, I don't know. But 95% of your life is run on subconscious, isn't it? You just get up and do things, get up, get a shower, go to work, blah 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 blah. So this will kind of come into like what's in the book and the kind of nuts and bolts of this sort of stuff. But you know, when you think about that and you're helping people through this, how do you get them started? Because obviously people have got to come. Like the way I look at it is I've got a thing which I call like the 4A's, and people have got to accept that what's got them to where they are now is like all the influences around them, and you can you can change all that. And then once you become aware of that, you can start to take, I've written down as well, imperfect action and all of that sort of stuff. Just start to move towards your North Star, right? But you've got to know what that is first. That's the thing, isn't it? So I guess the question is, how do you get people to know what they want?
So I don't think, and this is one of the things that's really interesting, is people say, "Will, I want you to help me know what I want," or words to that effect. And the reality is that I never help people to know what they want, because they already know. I just help them to see it. And that's the difference, is that the questions that I'm asking with people is getting them to realize what they already knew was always there, but it's just shaping it a little bit more and getting them to realize what is that's there. However, I will say, every single one of us have got a completely unique set of values. It's as unique as the fingerprint, that we've got on our hand. It's completely unique to us. And those values. So when I say about value, people quite often think about big corporate values, which are social idealisms, like words like kind and caring and whatever. I'm not saying don't be
integrity.
Those things. Integrity. Yeah, that's the one that comes
uses
up.
If you
I have integrity.
Yeah, if you have to say it, yeah.
Yeah, so that's what people think of, but your values are, I mean, I break them down into, and I actually, and this really helped me, is I distinguish them as three different things. So at two levels, you have what I call your end values, which are things that you're moving towards or away from, right? So typically pain and pleasure. I want more of something, I want less of something. So I call those your end values, which are typically feelings. And then you've got your means values, which are the things that you do that give you that outcome. So for example, you can have two people with the same end value of connection, but one person gets that from spending time with their family, another person gets that from spending time with their friends, right? So they're two different means that get the same end value. And when people are looking to get clear on what they want, is what's happened in most instances is that they haven't either got clear on their values, or they're not living congruently with their values. So congruently meaning aligned, essentially. They're not being aligned with their values. So when people live other people's values that have either been injected or projected onto them, and what I mean by that is we've all got people that we deemed as authorities. Now take the word authority, it's got the word author in it, right? So anyone that we enable to be an authority to us is essentially potentially being the author of our life, because we're potentially living life through their values. You'll know if you're living your values or someone else's, firstly, because you'll find you're constantly needing constant motivation to do the very thing you're having to do. But secondly, from the language you're using. So if you're using language like I need to, I have to, I should, it's an indication that you're not living your own values. When you're living your own values, you're using language like I love to, I choose to, I desire to, and you're in inspiration. So we've all had it, where you're doing something and you can just keep going and going and going, and you're more energized at the end of the day. It's an indication you're inspired, you're in spirit. Another word for spirit is energy. You're in your energy. You can do that very thing all day and get to the end of the day and still have energy, if not have more energy, because you've been doing the very thing that fills you up. And I think that's one of the common myths around burnout, in my opinion. People think they burn out because they're working too hard. I completely disagree. I don't think anybody burns out because they're working too hard. People burn out because they're not spending enough time doing the stuff that they love doing.
Just on that, I've been putting something together about burnout, about like executives and burnout, because obviously I got to that because I wasn't, I enjoyed what I was doing, But then it got to a point like the financial crisis in 2008, and then I got made redundant 5 years after that, and I was in all of that, and trying to trade through that was just and be in that world was horrible. It was really horrible. But you know, I've just been saying, like, there's a lot of people who like executive types and stuff like that who are in this world, and they kind of, you know, make as much money as possible. And then they think like next year I'll give it up and go and do something more meaningful. Next year, and you're right. That's where burnout happens, because the whole time you're doing that, it's what's it, cognitive dissonance, isn't it? The whole time you're doing that, you're thinking, I want to be doing this instead. And then that battle in your brain is just massive. So 10 years ago when I got made redundant, it was a massive relief. But I wrote about it yesterday. It was a massive relief, but then it was like, it gave me time to space and time to think, which I thought was going to be a good thing at the time. And it turns out it was a good thing, but it all of a sudden I started listening to my thoughts, and then it was like, oh, hang on, I need to sort this out. So, you know, because it could have been easy to go and get another job doing the same thing, and then 10 years down the line now it would have been in the same, worse. So it was interesting because it was a conscious decision to say, right, I'm not doing that anymore. Similar to you, it was like a bit of an epiphany of like, I wasn't enjoying that. I need to do something else. So that was, the collaboration thing was where I went to find people, like, you know, like I got to know James a couple of years later and stuff like that, and just find people who were doing things that they seemed to enjoy. And it was like, right, let's go and do that. Sorry.
I love that actually, Will, the way you kind of that burnout, because I remember when I started the business sort of 16 years ago, and I was working very, very hard back then. And a few people sort of said to me, well, you won't be able to keep this going for long, or you're just going to burn out, or you're just going to, you know, but if you're doing something you genuinely love, which I suppose is you're in line with your values and everything else, like you say, you have an abundance of energy to do it, and it doesn't actually even feel like work, does it? I suppose that's the thing. What you do now, the way you are, is the term, is it like a maven or something like that? Is that a term? With someone who connects people and pulls things together and sees connections. I don't know if that's a word. I've got it in my head somewhere. But probably you can do what you do all the time and not feel tired. Is that kind of true or fair?
Yes, to a degree. I'm hesitating because it depends on what I'm doing. Like there are activities that I do in my week at the moment that if I did much more of them, then it would burn me out. And the answer is yes, right? So what I'm constantly trying to do is prioritize my time to be spending time doing the stuff that I love doing. And it's those things that fill me up and fuel me. And for me, so my highest four means values are self-mastery, building businesses, creating wealth, and building relationships, right? And if I'm doing those things, they're all aligned with my values, and they're moving forward and they're progressing, and happy days. You know, it's that for me is the element that works. And actually I caveat that, because sometimes it isn't what you're necessarily doing, but it can be your perception of it as well. So if you perceive that you're doing things that align with your values, then that can also be key. But yeah, look, I'm human. I'm the same as everybody else, and I do caveat it with fundamentals, right? Having the fundamentals in place, having a good quality night's sleep, making sure that you've eaten well, making sure that you've got your sort of appropriate liquids, you've done a degree of mindfulness, you've exercised. Because if you don't have the fundamentals in place, then you're gonna fall apart, right? So there's got to be a common sense has to be applied. But equally, you could be the person that eats the perfect diet, gets 8 hours quality sleep with loads of REM sleep and deep sleep. You can drink the perfect amount of water with loads of Celtic sea salt in it, and you can make sure you're getting the perfect amount of exercise every day. But if you're doing stuff that you hate doing, you're not gonna be at your best.
So
how do you get because I use a thing of with some guys who, like the guys who are training stuff like that, and we do some like similar type of stuff to this, and I use what I call charge points to charge them up, you know. So it's like and you were talking about the Pomodoro technique in your book as well, and how you wrote that, and you do like 5 minutes on, 50, and then go for a walk, or like do whatever for 15 minutes. And it's like something to plug you back in. Because if you try to write that book in 3 days, you're going to hate it, aren't you? You're going to be like, that bloody book. Every time someone says, oh, I've read your book, you'd be like, oh. But doing it in that way, obviously it rejuvenates your creativity and your energy and all of that. So like, I mean, do you use that with people as well to say, like, you know, because that's kind of where burnout comes from as well. I think, like you say, it's people are doing things that they don't necessarily like, but they go, I'll just do it for another hour, and then I'll have time, and then all of a sudden it's dark outside and all that, and then you haven't got time to do anything, or you were going to go to the gym but you're too tired, or
Absolutely,
whatever it is. Because like mine is walking the dog. It was chucking it down with rain today, but I took him out for 2 hours because I'm like, I enjoy doing that, and I'm outside, and I love being outside, and that's what I do. And if I hadn't have done that because it was raining, I'd be sitting here now thinking like, I probably should have done, and it would be playing on my mind. So how do you get people to kind of realize that they need to create that space for themselves rather than, you know, just being like, I'll do it when I have time?
So there's a few different ways. I mean, first of all, I think it comes down to, so I talk about a concept in the book of having what I call a North Star trajectory, right? So the idea of a North Star trajectory is having a whole bunch of goals around the 7 areas of life in different time frames. So 10-year, 5-year, 3-year, 1 year, 90-day, 30-day, it's broken down. And getting really clear on what you want, not what you think you can get, and that's the key, not what you think you can get, but what you want. Because most people never go after what they want is because they don't know how. And that comes back to the same thing before. So if you don't know how, then find the who that can help you find out, right? So or make it happen. So that's the first thing, and it's one of the exercises that I do with my clients, and they literally have to go through and send this to me. Is I love simple stuff, right? I love simple stuff, and for me, there's nothing more simple than a traffic light. You know, red is bad, amber is okay, green is good. So what they have to update on a monthly, quarterly, yearly basis is they have the traffic light their progress on their goals. So if there's lots of things that are red, then something needs to change because you haven't got that outcome. And I want to distinguish, and I don't think I don't talk about this in the book, but it's becoming more and more prevalent, is that when whatever the goal is, whatever it is, and we use fitness as an example of this, whether if it's a weight goal or if it's a body fat goal or if it's a fitness goal, that is always an output. That is always an output, and it's the inputs that enable that to happen. So the inputs are the things that you have the control over. So the calories in, calories out, amount of exercise, intensity of exercise, duration of exercise, all those things are the inputs that we have the controls over. And when we follow it back up, so I call them actions in the book. So I talk about goals, which is the outcome, and actions are the doing behaviors. It's almost always non-intelligent action. So intelligent action is action that's aligned with your values and your goals, and in those intelligent actions are the things that you're doing that are progressing you closer to rather than getting further away from where you want to get to. So by doing that exercise and just seeing that, that's how people can see, Peter, that they are, whether they're getting close to and whether they can realize, well, actually, like most people, I suppose if you're colorblind, this doesn't particularly work, but if you can go, wow, this month there was loads of red, last month there was loads of red, the month before there was loads of red, something needs to change for that to change.
And that's where people will change the goal, won't they? They'll go, oh, I'll change the end point. It's like, no, change the process. The goal exactly state, like usually the goal is what you actually truly want. So absolutely. Yeah. But that's where I think people stumble down, don't they? And they go, I'll just change the goal, or I don't need to do that, or I'll just forget it. And it's like, which is where people like coaches like you come in, because it's like, no, you don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you need to do to get to that goal now? And it's that's great.
Because I think what was different, Will, with the book as well, I thought the whole concept of the North Star and that sort of North Star trajectory and it's almost like, I think you say it in the book, maybe not in these exact words, but that you shouldn't ever actually get to the North Star. You know, that it's kind of a direction of movement and it's where you're headed, but it's not like an endpoint, is it? It's not an output. It's it's a kind of, like you say, a guiding principle, a guiding direction that you're moving towards, which enables you to be a bit more broad and, I suppose, ambitious with the North Star. Whereas, like you say, a lot of people, they don't, if they can't immediately see a realistic way of achieving something, they won't set it as a goal, because straight away their head gets in the way and they think they can't do it. But this North Star, I'm moving towards this, and how can I so how, just a question, I suppose, how did you come up with the idea of North Star thinking? I mean, that's a huge question, because it's probably been something that's brewed for the last decade and it's solidified. But yeah, where did that come from for you?
It's actually an easier question to answer than you'd think. So I was, when I was working in London, I was doing very well financially, but what was driving me was the financial output. So I wanted X car, X watch, X house. It was always the next thing. I mean, to the point where I remember one day I had the house and the car and the watches and blah, blah, blah. And I just remember thinking, oh God, what am I going to get next? And I was watching Bloomberg. Bloomberg was on the screen, and there was someone in a microlight, and I thought that'd be cool. Right. So I've gone online. How much is a microlight? Landed on like the equivalent of planes for Auto Trader or whatever it was. And there was these microlights that were like 15 grand or whatever they were. And I was like, but a plane's only 30. I'll just buy a plane. That'd be better. Like, the plane will be more fun. I can go more places in a plane. But it was like that constant, like, what's next, what's next, what's next. And just to be clear, I didn't buy the plane, but it did spark something off for me, which I'm pursuing at the moment. But the key around the whole North Star thinking bit, I would love to say that I've had all these original, amazing things, but I'm an obsessive learner, and what I think I'm fairly good at is taking complex stuff and simplifying it. And there's this quite famous story, you've probably heard of it. It involves a baby born in a stable a couple of thousand years ago in December. And there were three men, supposedly wise, all carrying presents. And they followed this North Star, and they found their goal of finding the baby. But they achieved the goal of finding the baby, but they never went to the North Star, or at least they didn't in the story anyway. And that was really what got me thinking, because I just thought, so many people, I call it when then syndrome. You know, people set a goal, they achieve it. They set another goal, they achieve it. They set another goal, they achieve it. And they actually become really unfulfilled and really unmotivated. Whereas this idea of having a big goal in life that's so big, you never achieve it, then you can detach from the outcome and you can focus on the process, which, like I say, I would love to say is my completely unique way of thinking. But essentially, it's a part of Buddhist philosophy. And it's about focusing on the process, because then the way I imagine it in my head, and you don't really see them these days, but once upon a time on computers, you'd have like a loading bar, and it's like 0% to 100%. You get to 100%, then it was complete. Whereas the idea of having this goal that you never achieve, I say it's about having a goal in life that's the equivalent of trying to empty the sea with a spoon, is that every single day you've got an opportunity to be more fulfilled, more energized, impact more people, have more energy, be fitter, have more money. Like all of the areas get empowered. That is very much from a place of abundance, rather than potentially limiting yourself, whereby then you can focus constantly on the gap. Because you can focus on the gap or the gain. Most people will focus on the gap and they want to close the gap, which I get. But with this big North Star, then you can completely detach from that. So that's where it comes from.
Can I ask a question? Because this is something, it's not, I don't think it's in the book. I think I saw it on your social media, although I may, I kind of get a bit mixed up. But you were talking just then about the microlight and the aeroplane. And I saw something whereby, was it a goal at one stage you wanted to get to fly? I saw you flew in a plane, didn't you, yourself, to a meeting with someone up north, and then you flew back on the same day, and you flew because you're a pilot as well. Can you just tell us about that? Because that was incredible. I just remember that. It's just jumped into my head.
Yeah, so this is the God's honest truth, and I've never said this on a podcast either. So there's a lot of firsts here on me on this episode. When I first saw the idea of getting the microlight and seeing the plane, I was single at the time, and I thought that'd be a really cool thing to do on a first date, is say to someone, right, we're not going to go to Pizza Express or whatever, but we're going to go to France for lunch, and I thought that'd be really cool. So I started doing some lessons, and at the time it didn't work out, and for a variety of different reasons. I was busy with hockey and stuff. But a couple of years ago, I picked it back up and started doing my pilot's license, and I'm sort of working on within hopefully a couple of months of having that. But yeah, you're right. I thought if I can use it for work and do stuff, and I'm a huge advocate. I mean, we haven't even touched on it today, but I'm a huge advocate of being effective and efficient with time. I mean, literally a whole chapter in the book called Master Your Time. And you mentioned Michael Heppel, Peter, at the beginning of the show. I'm assuming you know him because from your accent. It sounds like you're from.
I know of him. I don't know him
Right.
at all. I just know he's from the northeast.
He is from the northeast, indeed. Yeah. And so Michael was like a hero of mine. Michael's book is behind me. You can just about see it for those of you watching it. The first book I read called How to Be Brilliant, and I absolutely loved the book. And I sent him a message a couple of months ago because I said, Michael, this is the day, so you get the Facebook time hops or whatever they're called that they come up, and I said, I remember this was the first time I interviewed him on one of my things I did, and I remember I was massively starstruck because I was like, this guy, I've read his book, he's amazing, and we've become really, really good friends. So yeah, I did a day with him. He's an incredible speaker, and I wanted to up my speaker game, so we booked in to do a day together. I flew up there, he picked me up. We went and did the day's training at the hotel, jumped in the car 5 minutes from the airfield, and I flew back home.
Yeah,
like Bruce Dickinson, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think you had so you're flying at the moment. Obviously, you're still getting your license. So I think you had your I suppose your pilot instructor with you, and you flew. So where was it you went to? Sort of Newcastle area?
Yeah, just shy of Newcastle. Yeah.
Yeah. So you flew from Essex to Newcastle, did a day's training, then flew back yourself and landed. So yeah, like you say, you got a good flying lesson in, and you also went up and had a full day's training, which is fantastic. Oh dear. Well, it's been incredible speaking so far. I mean, like you say, we haven't really scratched the surface of the book, of the sort of stuff you do, and of everything else. But we maybe down the line we'll have to try and get you back on again if possible. And we've not really, I really wanted to kind of talk about, values as they relate to, end values and process values as they relate to sort of health and fitness and lifestyle and that sort of thing. But just as an introduction to you and the book and what you do, it's been fantastic. If I'm aware, we need to wrap up fairly shortly. If people, first of all, I suppose, if people want to get their hands on the book, North Star Thinking, Master Your Mindset and Live a Life You Love, where do they get that? Do they go to that's
the one. Yeah, Amazon. I mean, what I will say, I'm really enjoying this conversation, and I have actually got another 7 minutes, so I'm happy to squeeze them out, because otherwise I'm only going to sit here. So if you've got the 7 minutes, like, let's use them. I'd rather do that, and hopefully people will take another nugget or two out of it. But yeah, they can go to Amazon, Waterstones.com, Barnes and Noble, whatever.
Anywhere books are sold, or you can buy them online. You'll find it if you tap it in. Yeah, no, that's great. Okay, then. So maybe the question, I suppose. Okay, so I'll try and kind of be succinct with it. A lot of people who we meet and who we have on and who we talk about and who we have as maybe clients and people we meet, and a lot of people will know maybe their health, their fitness, their lifestyle is not maybe where it could be, or maybe even where they want it to be, but they kind of struggle to, I suppose, align their actions with the outcome that they may want. What's your kind of thinking around that? Is it that the outcome is not really deep down what they want, or is it, I mean, from your perspective, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, it's multifaceted, and it will depend, but I'll try and come at it from a few different angles, because then someone might go, oh wow, yeah, that's the one that chimes with me. So I said before, I'm kind of an obsessive learner, and one of the modalities that I kind of did a deep dive on, and we ended up having a training company involved in it, is something called neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. And one of the lesser known founders of NLP, he's kind of the one that a lot of people don't ever mention, is a guy called Robert Dilts. And Robert Dilts created a model called neurological levels of change. And when most people are trying to influence change, they try and influence change at the behavior level, which is one of the lower levels of behavior change. So you can imagine it like as a triangle, and behavior is the penultimate one from the bottom, so second from bottom. But if we really want to create change, and when I'm trying to do change work with my clients, I don't even faff around with behavior level. We go straight for the jugular, which is purpose, so the reason why they're doing it. But then we look at identity, because your identity is one of the strongest forms of belief, right? So the two most powerful words in the English language are I am. Anything you say I am, you are. So if somebody takes on and embodies the identity of I am an athlete, then their values and beliefs, their skills and capabilities, their behavior and their environment, which is kind of if you imagine the triangle down, will be impacted like a domino, right? It's like a domino. And there's a great little meme or video, whatever you want to call it, that floats around on social media, and it shows like a almost like a tic-tac sized domino, and then there's a bigger one and a bigger one and a bigger one and a bigger one and a bigger one. And I imagine it like that. So if you can make a change further upstream by dealing with the little tiny thing, I say little tiny one, but like is the purpose and the identity, which are arguably the biggest. Actually, they can have the biggest impact further down the line because you've got all of that momentum. So the first thing is identity. So if people have the belief, I am not a healthy person, I am overweight, I am, then everything is going to be conducive towards them not getting the outcome they want. So that's one of the factors. Another factor that you can look at, which is a behavioral piece, is secondary gain. So people talk about self-sabotage. I don't believe that anybody ever self-sabotages. I believe that everything that they're doing is serving a purpose to help them, albeit they may not consciously think that's the case. So for example, if somebody is binging on their choice of substance, whether that's alcohol, sugar, whatever, right? More often than not, it's because it's masking another symptom of something else. So then it's a case of digging deeper. What's really going on here? Because if you treat the cause, the symptoms go, right? So if people have got extreme stress, for example, and they're nursing it with alcohol, sugar, whatever, smoking, then there won't be if you keep trying to stop the alcohol and keep trying to stop the sugar and stop that, well, you're not dealing with the root cause. So there's just a couple of different ways of looking at it. Yeah, and like I say, there may be others. It would be very much context dependent, but that
because I suppose some people try and just force the change, don't they? You know what I mean? Like force the change, like probably from the behavior end, like you say. It's like, and that I suppose that's the kind of, and most, so many people can recognize this is they just say, I'm going to start going to the gym 3 times a week, and they've not addressed anything else further upstream or downstream. It's just, I'm going to start going to the gym. And they constantly hit this resistance of, we don't even enjoy going to the gym. You don't even like going to the gym. Going to the gym feels horrible. It's painful. You feel, you're embarrassed when you go there, but they just try and force that behavior change where all that kind of backstream work is what's going to create it. No, that's really interesting. But no, we'll definitely have to speak to you again, Will, because I mean, that's just kind of opened up a whole new kind of Pandora's box of things we can discuss. But thank you so much, Will. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you and spending this hour with you. North Star Thinking, I'd really recommend. I mean, you've read it as well, Pete. Did you?
Yep.
Recommend?
No, it's great. What I love about it is at the end of each chapter, it's like, right, you don't just sit and read, because loads, you said yourself, you went to that event 3 days, and you're like, right, I'm going to be the best life coach has ever been, and then you didn't do it because it's a 3-day event. You come back from it feeling absolutely fantastic, but then you go back to the life that you were at, right? So it's consistency over time, and you've got to put the effort. Like the amount of people I know and I speak to on a daily basis who've got a pile of self-help books this high, and they're still doing exactly the same things that they've always done. And it's like, you've got to implement this stuff. So yours has got stuff like practical stuff at the end saying, right, here's what to do. And then you've got your resource of the website of like, go to the website and there's all like, you can print all these things off and all that. So I just think that's brilliant because it's like a lot of a lot of books don't actually say that. They just have the stuff and then go, there you go away and use it. And this is like, no, do it. So
that was something that's really important for me. I didn't want to just have this taster for people. Like, I genuinely wanted someone, even if they never watched a video on YouTube, they never attended an event, a course, or whatever. They could read the book, they could do the exercises, and it be transformational. I didn't want it to just be information. I wanted it to create transformation, and that for me is the purpose of the exercises. So yeah, no, I'm glad. Thank you.
That's brilliant. And the DILTS model as well. I love that. I use that myself, because then you can borrow from. There's another book by Dr. Ben Hardy, like Be Your Future Self Now, and you can just say, this is what I want in the future, and then you can borrow from your future self and do, like we've talked about this before. You become the character. You become, what characteristics does that person have that they've got 10 years down the line, or 5 years, or whatever, like, the ladder of goals that you've got, like you say, like where you want to be in 3 months, 6 months, and all that. What do they do? And then say, well, I'll do that today then. So I love that. That's how I use it anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic, Will. In terms of people following you and finding out more about you and what you do, what's the best kind of avenue or social media platform? Where are you most kind of active? Where would you like people to go?
Yeah, look, social media. I suppose we're on Will Polston. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn. Don't use Twitter, but yeah, come and find us there. Yeah.
What I'll say is it's all in the back of the book. So buy the book.
Buy the book.
I should have practiced that one, shouldn't I? Yeah, you can find out all the information at the back of the book.
Yeah,
you can only find it when you buy the book.
No, that's great. Thank you so much, Will. That's been great. And like I say, lots to think about and lots to potentially discuss in the future. But thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to all of our listeners. Thank you for listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, leave a review if you're listening or watching on a platform that allows you to do so. We are currently trying to expand our reach on YouTube. So if you go to the Health Oddity YouTube channel and give us a subscribe, that would be great. And as Pete mentioned earlier, we do now have healthoddity.com, where you can find all 169 episodes so far in audio and video format. All nicely laid out and organized by Pete. He's been very busy. And next week, we will be back for episode 170, joined by Sean Cairns from Cape Town in South Africa. And he actually messaged me about half an hour before we came on today and said, it is today, isn't it, that we're on? I said, no, Sean, it's next week. So we nearly had Sean jumping on from South Africa, but he'll be on with us next week, Sean Cairns. So thank you, everybody. Thank you once again, Will, for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. I hope people have found it beneficial.
Brilliant. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.